Welcome back to Nick in Detail. I am Nick, and in today's video, we're going to be previewing the All Blacks and Ireland game, which kicks off in Auckland tonight. In this video, I'll give my thoughts on the game, who will be the one to watch, and give a prediction for how I think this game will go. Without further ado, let's get into today's video. Round 3 of the 2026 Nations Cup kicks off tonight, what will be the final round before then the Northern Hemisphere teams will host the Southern Hemisphere teams in November. The All Blacks taking on Ireland at Eden Park. The Fortress, it has been dubbed, as the All Blacks have not lost there in their last 56 test matches, 30 odd years it dates back to, in a big matchup against the Irish. Let's give my thoughts on this game. This is going to be probably out of this round, and probably if I'm looking at the overall Nations Championship so far, probably the biggest matchup of them all. All Blacks v Ireland. Both these teams have not been looking too great to start the Nations Championship. Yes, they're both 2 from 2. They've been playing some okay rugby, but you look at the overall hype and the brand around their style of rugby, it just hasn't been probably going quite to plan. For the All Blacks, of course, Dave Rooney coming in, and of course, he very much has been getting a little bit more of consistency from the All Blacks team, particularly after that performance against Italy. While for Ireland, they've got a few injuries, but also a few players retiring, and one very young backline this Nations Championship that hasn't really delivered too much in these first couple of rounds. And of course, taking it to Eden Park, which of course is such a famous historic ground for New Zealand rugby, and with that record on the line in front of a sold-out crowd, it's going to be an absolute blockbuster. Both these teams making pretty much no really big significant changes to this team. For the All Blacks, of course, bringing back in, a lot of their big hitters. Josh Morby starting on the wing, a change that very much I am very much for. Very much a very good performance from him against Italy off the bench. I feel like added a bit more oomph on that left wing. No disrespect, of course, to Leroy Carter. I think 20 minutes doesn't really give you a whole lot. Does set up a nice try for Will Jordan, though, for that first one for the All Blacks last weekend. But I felt like when Josh Morby came on, just added a bit more excitement, a bit more pace on that wing, as he's shown for the Hurricanes all year. But on the left wing as well, it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on. We've only really seen him in right wing and fullback for the Canes this year. So seeing him shift out to the left, where I thought he was great last week, will be very interesting change. Very surprised though, no Beauden Barrett. I thought we might have seen him get a run, particularly when we heard Dave Rooney at the start of the Nations Championship making it pretty clear that he was going to use all his players he's named in the squad. Well, we're not going to see Beauden Barrett at all, at least for these first few games. Kyle Preston as well, thought might have got a run. I think a very good young halfback coming through, and very much showing promises of the player he can be at the Crusaders over the last couple of years. More notably, his debut against South Africa last year, he was brilliant off the bench at Eden Park. Thought we might have seen him get a run. Tupou Vaa'i at 6, a very interesting change. One that I believe that actually is a pretty good logical change as well. He brings a lot of height, a lot of aggression, and he's been very impressive. Was probably the standout last year in that Scott Robertson squad. Probably we'll see him long term being in that number 4 or 5 sort of role, but I think for this game tonight, a big logical change for him to come in to that 6 jersey. And yeah, overall, very happy with this All Blacks team. Cody Taylor, I know probably not a player personally for me, even though I understand the reasons around it. Probably a player I wouldn't have picked for tonight. I thought Simasoni Takilaho was brilliant off the bench last week. Asafu Amua, he's been brilliant for the Canes all year as well. I would like to see those two being the two hookers for tonight's game. Asafu Amua will be coming off the bench tonight for the All Blacks. For Ireland, obviously very much the team we saw kind of last week against Japan. We know that front row has been looking pretty good for them so far. That back line, we're seeing first 5 Sam Prendergast stepping up a little bit. We know there's been a lot of criticism around that first 5 jersey since the retirement of Johnny Sexton last year, but I think very much what we're seeing of Sam Prendergast is him stepping up and really inheriting that number 10 jersey to make it his own. And of course, Jamison Gibson-Park, who arguably along with Antoine Dupont has probably been one of the best halfbacks over the last couple of years. Back in Auckland where he grew up as well and played for the Blues over many years. Very much going to be a big player to watch for Ireland. But overall, this game promises to be an absolute blockbuster in front of a sold-out Eden Park tonight. So who will be the one to watch? Well, I mentioned it before. Josh Morby, for me, is going to be the one to watch. I'm very excited to see how he's going to go in his first All Black star. We know probably realistically he's really in that team. I think Finia Nofo, had he been fit, maybe might have made a shout for that 11 jersey. But Josh Morby, off his brilliant performance last week, was probably the most logical change that had to be made. Leroy Carter, obviously very much a shame for him, because I felt like we didn't really get to see what Leroy Carter could have done in that game in Wellington last week. But Josh Morby Smallby, as I said before, just really brought a lot of energy off the bench, set up a try for his Hurricanes mate Cam Roygaard last week, but overall just really brought that aggressive, sort of pace we really need on that left wing. I think something, like I said before, can't really criticise Leroy Carter, didn't get much of a run, but I just don't think we kind of saw that in that first 20 minutes last week in Wellington. But with Josh Smallby, he's very much shown how class he's been for the Hurricanes this year. Of course, 17 tries along with Fehe Finian-Nofo, and very much so far, at least from that game last week, very much carried that form into this match. And what's also going to be very interesting, of course, as I said before, that left wing position. He's been playing out on the right and fullback for the Canes over his career so far, more notably on the wing for the Canes last year on the right. But the left wing is going to be a very interesting game. Of course, he had to do it, of course, last week for about 60-odd minutes, but how will he go? And probably what will be likely a 70, possibly even a full 80 game for him. But still, nonetheless, very excited to see Josh Smallby on that left wing. For one to watch tonight, very interesting to see how he's going to go in this match tonight. So let's give my predictions. I actually don't think this game is going to be as close as what probably a lot of people, including you, are probably going to be predicting it to be. I think the All Blacks are going to get the job done here. There's just something about Eden Park. We saw it South Africa last year. They really turned up for their occasion. And of course, we will ignore what happened the week after in Wellington. But just the momentum, the occasion, just the All Blacks just seem to thrive in playing at Eden Park. And I believe this will once again be the occasion tonight. I'm picking the All Blacks to win by 10 points. Yes, I know not a big overall score margin, but I think overall, when you look at the games that these two teams have had over the last, I'd say, 5 or so years, it has been relatively tight, although in the game they had in the States last year, it probably wasn't as close as what a lot of people thought it was going to be. But I think this game for the All Blacks, I think we'll once again see a lot more improvement from them. As I said, I'm still not convinced on this team yet. I think we still need another game or two before we really see how this Dave Rennie team's going to shape up. Already lots of good promising signs though with their aggression and their attack going forward, the momentum, their drive, their speed. But I think very much for this game, the All Blacks are just going to be slightly better. I think particularly in that back line, I'm still not sold on that Ireland back line as of yet. I think once again, just like with the All Blacks sort of play style, I think we need a bit of time to warm up to how this team's going to play. But overall for me, for this prediction, All Blacks are going to win by 10. It will be probably not a big blowout, as I said before. 10 points is still a relatively close margin, but as I said before, for these games, it's probably expected to be a little bit closer, but for me, I'm just feeling that's not going to be the case for tonight's game. So that's going to be for me. Yeah, can't believe we've already got to the third round of the Nations Championship. As I said before in my intro, this will be the final game of this first part of the championship. Of course, it will resume later in the year, of course, when the Southern Hemisphere teams will go over to the Northern Hemisphere for those three last, I guess, group stage round robin games, or whatever you want to call it. And then, of course, we have that all-finals weekend at Twickenham in London. So very excited. We're getting towards the end of the inaugural Nations Championship. So great to really have this sort of competition going on. I think very much like we see with the football when they have their respective competitions, the Euros, the Copa America. We're kind of seeing this for the Nations Championship. I think a really great initiative to really bring this in. But overall, for this tonight's game, it's going to be a blockbuster. You don't want to miss it. Eden Park as well just doesn't get much better than that. But that's going to be it from me. And until next time, I'll see you later.